You're watching Breaking Barriers, and I'm your host, Aaliya. Welcome to my show. Today, we have very special guest with us. Uh, Her name is Suraya, and Suraya talk and work regarding social justice and women empowerment against bigotry, against violence, and she is basically a lawyer. First of all, thank you very much for joining our show.
Assalamu alaikum, Aaliya. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Thank you for having me on the show at such a timely moment in our life's history to talk about some important aspects and to introduce myself. I was born in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, as you know, is a little island in the Indian Ocean. 70% of Sri Lankans are Buddhists. So, and about 9% are Muslims and minorities. So, we grew up in a different era, a different time, and a different laws and traditions. I say this because I want to tie it to later some issues that we are hoping to discuss. So, I practiced law for several years, and then there was an incident that happened where my son was bullied, called a terrorist after 9/11. He was only 7 years old. And Alia, that was a defining moment in my life. I knew that I had to really speak hope and truth to my child first, because we know that when after 9/11, Muslims had a difficult time. But this country is larger than that particular incident, and I wanted to raise my children in the most civic minded uh, children who would serve and do their best for this country that has given us so much, the United States. So after 9/11, that I got engaged in social justice activism after my son's incident where he was called a terrorist. And there I met a lot of interfaith partners. And I recognized and realized early on that interfaith solidarity is critical to cohesive societies. And that took me to representing my community, the Muslims. And I didn't really, um, I was challenged with some of the ways and the norms and the practices. And I began to address issues within the community and as much as within outside of it.
Okay, Soraya, this is pleasure for us, for our viewers, that this is very first time that I'm hosting a woman from Sri Lanka, because basically you are from Sri Lanka. So
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, uh, please tell us something, tell us a lot of things about Sri Lanka when we talk about women empowerment. And as you are also working for AMVAC, a women leader, peace leader, as a peace leader for AMVAC, and you just conducted a beautiful, amazing conference for women empowerment, for anti-Semitism, uh, for social justice. So what is the situation of bigotry against women, against progressive mindset in Sri Lanka? Because
Mm.
I know about Pakistan. When we talk minorities in Pakistan, and one Sri Lankan, we remember that was Priyantha, who was killed in Pakistan due to blasphemy law, black law, and people killed him because they said that he did something blasphemous thing, some mindset. So, what about Sri Lanka?
Hmm. Two things you asked. One is AMVAC, American
Yeah.
Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council. As you know, it's led by a Pakistani woman who has committed to civic rights for the Muslims. She works extensively on religious freedom issues, and lately I have partnered with AMVAC. I run a Muslim Women Speakers Bureau. We have women who speak on these issues, where Anila Ali needs to be mentioned and acknowledged for her work, particularly around social justice and gender equality. Um, what is happening in Sri Lanka is we were devastated by the death of Priyantha Kumara, who was not killed, he was lynched in broad daylight for the charge of blasphemy. Apparently, he had removed some posters that were written in Arabic. I don't know about you, Alia, but we growing up, we were not taught Arabic is a language. It is not nothing to do with Islam per se. So there was this misunderstanding that it was an insult to religion, and blasphemy, as we know, is a terrible crime. And Pakistan, I hope, will work to eradicate these laws because it stifles freedom of speech. And I believe personally that Islam is the religion of 1.7 billion people. And Islam stands with its power by itself. Islam is, in fact, desecrated by these frivolous suits and frivolous actions, killing people for insulting, that is, what people think God is desecrates Islam because so Priyanka's murder, the lynching was a terrible blow to us, and of course, Pakistani government stood strong and supported him and his community. But because I work in the area of religious freedom, I still think much needs to be done in Pakistan and mainly Muslim majority countries. Several years ago, a group of my colleagues and I, we went to the United Nations because 13 Muslim majority countries have death penalty for blasphemy. So it is so hard to move the needle, Alia. Our our grievance was to these countries to at least repeal the death penalty. You can imprison a person if you're sensitive, if you're so fragile when it comes to your Muslim identity and your religion, the way you see it. Uh, um, at least take away the death penalty. Let us imprison a person, give that person life, and we are still working to do it. It has not happened, and
Yeah.
that's an urgent call. Yes.
And sorry to interrupt you, but the same sentiment in Pakistan, same sentiment regarding Jews and which we call anti-Semitism. If you talk about anti-Semitism, no one will understand because they don't know.
Mm.
There is no knowledge. Pakistan passport, there is written that you can go anywhere, but not in Israel, right?
See, anti-Semitism is a form of libel, Alia. This concept of plausibility, the quality of it seems reasonable, it seems probable. You don't have to prove anything to be an anti-Semite. That is pure Jew hatred, hatred for the Jews, hatred for the existence of the country of Israel. I don't know, the other day I wrote about this. Whenever I sit in the backyard of my house and I have my cup of tea, Sri Lanka has one of the best, we export some of the best tea. And
Yeah.
I often see birds building a nest. Every one of us need a home to call our home. So the Jewish people need a home. And I believe that before all this Palestinian cause arose, the land was called Palestine. The Romans named it Palestine, and there were Palestinian Jews and there were Palestinian Arabs. They lived together, and in 19 there is a chronology of events that we have to really understand when we talk about this conflict. In 1929 there was the Hebron massacre. In 19 early 90s there was the Balfour Declaration to give a homeland for the Jews. And then of course there was a terrible Arab revolt in the 1930s where Husseini, I think he was the Mufti of Jerusalem, he refused to give a separate state to to the Jews. And that particular refusal, even at that time, there were other tribes in Palestine who wanted to give this separate state to the Jews. But Husseini prevailed, and of course, as we all know, Husseini was very friendly with Hitler, and his one goal was not just not to give a state to the Jews, but to really eradicate the Jewish communities. So that's a deeper conflict. But in Sri Lanka, what has happened, Alia, is after, and you know, in India, Jews have lived for generations, and they live without any fear in India, except of course the Chabad House massacre in the 2000s, where there are two or three, I think, terrorists from Pakistan.
Jews are living there freely from decades or from many
Yes,
years.
yes, very much so. There's a lot of history and culture in India. So in Sri Lanka, because in the 1800s, it was the Jew who translated the Quran into Arabic, and it was the Jewish individual who brought the first tea plant to Sri Lanka, and a lot of work has happened. But something happened in Sri Lanka after October 7th. In that, the Israeli government nor did the Jewish organizations educate the people about what happened. So in Sri Lanka too, the masses started to embrace the Palestinian narrative, the Arab narrative on this issue. And right now, if you ask me, even though the government of Sri Lanka has very friendly, open relationships with the country of Israel, there are segments of our community, particularly Muslims, who don't want to have Jewish people um, coming to our country. They say they don't want the IDF, the defense forces, but it's a blanket. This is where I talk about the concept of plausibility. It's okay, we can say anything about the Jew. The whole world comes together to hate them. So it's not as good as it should be. In Sri Lanka, the Jewish anti-Semitism, it's kind of on the rise, it's fermenting, and we have to talk about and address this.
There's a lot of Jews in India. They are living there, and there is a history, a recent history. And even when you go to past, you see that there is no problem living Jews in India. But simultaneously, in South Asia, there are other countries like Sri Lanka or Nepal, or we are talking about Pakistan. There is anti-Semitism emotions. People don't consider Israel or Jews as friends, but not in India. So why this difference? Can you elaborate? Because the region is same, but
Yes, yes.
yeah,
I think there is Palestinianism became a
yeah,
symbol of Arab morality, and all the Muslim majority countries, particularly Pakistan, Maldives, Bangladesh, they are very much affiliated to the Arab world. India is not so. It's a more secular country. So today, what we see is the tragic template of violence that was Arab instilled is being borrowed and copied. And Alia, every time the South Asians borrowed anything from Arabia, uh, it has not served us. We are a different culture. We are not a different community. So if we forget that we don't have to emulate the Arabs. But having said that, today, if you look at the Arab countries, they are trying to normalize relationships with the Jews and recognize the country of Israel. United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Saudi Arabia is on its path to do that. And that was when October 7th happened, you know. Iran couldn't stand it, that if Saudi Arabia normalized relationships with Israel, this conflict will be gone. So they initiated his Hamas, who is a proxy of Iran. People, you know, this conflict, Alia, we speak in in boxes, in silos. We can't do that. There are several actors to this conflict of promoting anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. One is Hamas. Today, do you hear anybody talking and calling out Hamas to release the hostages? What if after October 7th, the Muslim world said this Al Aqsa flood is a desecration of Islam? You can't use Islam's holy name for a terrorist attack. And then Islam prohibits taking women as hostages, the sick, the elderly, the children. And Islam prohibits the rape and the murder of women and children. These two things that Hamas did, the Muslim world was very silent about it. and this perpetuated the war. Imagine if we had condemned Hamas, and to this day we as a community have failed to call for the release of the hostages. So in Sri Lanka, going back to your question, there is this permeated discussion that is very slanted to the Arab version of what should be done and what is right. But we are South Asians. We are engaging in secondary reasoning. Secondary reasoning is a concept Maimonides talked about in the 12th century. Maimonides is a Jewish philosopher who worked and lived in harmony with Muslim scholars like Ibn Rushdi. We have to go back and visit those times. So, second principle is where you don't know a Jew, you have never been to Israel, but you are interpreting and you are understanding an event that is evolving in some other part of the world based on what is fed to you. And it's okay to have an opinion. I'm not saying not to. We all need opinions. We don't have to go to the moon to understand what the moon is constituted. But we cannot claim that to be the gospel truth. So you have to entertain multiple opinions. So I feel that that is lacking in South Asia, particularly in countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives. We have to change.
There is no reconciliation element in society, and nobody teach youth. That's why we see that there is too much violence, and there are groups, religious groups, who talk against Jews, and they protest. There were a lot of protest in Pakistan now and then against Jews, against Israel, and there I don't know about Sri Lanka, but if I talk about Pakistan, in textbooks there is written that this is your enemy and this is your friend. Hindu is your enemy, Jew is your enemy, and Muslims are your friend. So, do you think this is the basic element? This is the basic reason that we are teaching wrong history to our generation?
Which kind of books is it in Pakistan? School textbooks?
School textbooks, yeah, syllabus.
What age?
Uh, from primary to middle to colleges, everywhere.
Wow, that's terrible. That and first time I thought that was done in Palestine, in Gaza, but it
No,
is
in Pakistan
happening.
too.
Oh,
Yes.
oh wow, yes, that is very egregious, because no matter what, if you are teaching to hate somebody in the name of your religion, you need a different religion. Thank you for bringing that up. I would love to know more about this because hatred for the Jews, we have to accept this, Aaliya, is taught in our mosques and is taught in our schools. And now, first time I'm hearing that South Asia is doing this. Yeah, there's a lack of education. And then one of the things we don't teach our youth is that our mind, we live in a battlefield. Our mind is a battlefield. Every day, we don't visit that battlefield, we live in it. So we don't teach our children. Generally, in the Islamic schools, we say just ask Allah, ask Allah. What about your inner demons? We have to work through them, right? When a hateful thought comes, you see yourself in a mirror, and hatred is coming to rest in you. You don't clean the mirror, the hatred won't go away. You have to clean your mind. You have to clean your room that you're in, not the reflection that you see in the mirror. So I feel in a big way there has to be a tremendous push for spiritual learning in the Muslim world because we have burdened Allah with too much. Everything we put it to Him, and we don't tie our camel. And what we what we do, which is very wrong, is that there is text. Whatever said and done. Islam was
Yeah.
revealed in the 6th century. There was a
Mm.
culture, there was a tradition, there was life. And then in those times, there were functional distinctions, even for women. Women had to play roles because it was a tribal society. What we do is we try to import that and give even our women a 7th century Bill of Rights for today. And Pakistan, of course, has defied that in view having the first woman prime minister from Pakistan, and all of that is happening. But I don't know, I'm really sad, and I'm kind of very angry that we would teach hatred in our schools, hatred towards the Hindus, hatred towards the Jews. That's not acceptable.
News that now Saudi Arabia will recognize Israel and as UAE and few other countries, Arab countries did. But then all of a sudden, there is a Hamas attack. There was Hamas attack on Israel, 7th of October. Now, is there any chance that Saudi Arabia and few other Arab countries they will recognize Israel? Uh, is there any chance of reconciliation? Still, we have that chance or no?
Oh, very much, very much. Saudi Arabia has taken a very progressive path today. A friend of mine said there are so many clerics in Saudi Arabia who are in prison, being reformed and resuscitated, because Saudi Wahhabism has really not helped our community, our faith. There is no choice. Abraham Accords has to go through. And in fact, today, even as we speak, there is an Isaac's Accord that is being floated in Argentina. There are over 180,000 Jews in Argentina. And, you know, Abraham had two sons. Isaac was a son of Abraham, right? And Esau was the other one. Who the other son? Who Ishmael? Yes. So these are two
Ismail,
sons.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. In that name, at least we have to make peace, Aaliya. So people like in Argentina, they're creating the Isaac cause, and I think for us in our Muslim world, why don't we create the Ishmael cause and normalize friendships with the Jewish people? They are a very generous, kind people. They're highly misunderstood, and the Jews themselves are refugees. They're refugees. That's why in the 1800s, 500,000 Jews were so persecuted they left Russia and they went to Israel. And in the Arab world, the Jews were persecuted. They couldn't live there anymore. They left. They went to Israel. So if we are nice to somebody, we can expect a better result. Um, the little country is surrounded by the Arab world, and we are just fighting to give them this little inch of land, because when the British divided, a large portion of the land was given to Jordan. All the Palestinians are Jordanians. Though this Palestinian cause, I want your readers to investigate, was a cause that was brought forward in the 1960s. Russia had a huge role to instigate this cause, and Yasser Arafat carried that cause forward. So, so having said all of that, I don't want everybody to agree and say I'm wrong. I don't I don't have a monopoly on the truth. But let's look forward, Aaliya. What do we need to do? Can we hate a community? We don't have to look far. Look at the charter of Hamas. They had an agenda. If you go to an office, if you go for a job, first thing you look is what is the vision and the mission of this corporation. And policies are written to advance that vision. So if you look at Hamas's charter, what was their vision? The destruction of Israel. You can't destroy a country, that is they lived in a la la land, and the poor Palestinians, they had no choice. They had no voice, they had no choice. They had to listen to Hamas, and see where they brought them to. Today Gaza is non-existent. Gaza and the Palestinians. I mean, I pray that they have their own state and they govern themselves, because I want to see a world where Gaza and Palestinian children and Jewish children work together and create together. There's so much incredible talent in that region.
Thank you so much, Suraya. Thanks a lot once again for your enlightened conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.